Good morning, friends. Thanks for being here this morning for Journey Home Meditations Morning Sit. I'm Michael. I'm here to sit with you today, and I'm pretty happy to be here. Yeah, it's good to be back today. It was a pretty full and awesome week last week and an extremely busy weekend. So it's good to be able to get back into a regular sharing practice with you. Let's have a cup of tea this morning. So I started a new treatment it's a specific treatment for gout, but if you've known me for any length of time, you probably are aware that there are times that I am absent from being able to do things that I would otherwise like to be doing because I have these arthritic flare-ups in my body, right? And I had a gout diagnosis at age 27, and since then, that's kind of been the functioning model that we're using to try to understand what's happening to my body from a medical perspective. And I've tried different shifts and changes in diet and exercise, and I've tried different medications, all natural healing methods and modalities, prayer. I've tried all these things. And it seems that no matter what I'm trying to do, I'm still seeming to find that I'm not getting to that place of acceptance. And as soon as I think I am, then something else comes along and puts me right back into the seat of suffering and struggling and wishing I were something different, or wishing I was not what I am, or whatever it is that the voice of suffering takes on at that time. And I think it's really important that I note that when I think I'm taking on the world on these multiple planes, right, these multiple levels, I'm taking things on not as in like a fighter takes on another fighter. I'm taking them on as in like I am bringing them on board. These are things that I'm going to carry with me for now, whatever that may be. I'm taking on these roles or these experiences as a way to take, as Ram Dass would call, the human curriculum, right? I'm here to take my curriculum. But it can be so easy to confuse the ideas and the practices in our minds. And one of those things is the ability to sit with and have radical acceptance for yourself as you are, um, and then to become curious about what it is you're experiencing can sometimes be jumbled up and tangled with the punitive aspects of our culture. And so, to break that down a little more plainly, one of the practices is to listen to the discomfort, listen to the pain, see where it's coming from, find out what it's the voice of. So, so the idea of sitting in stillness and listening to my gout flare up, listening to the pain in my body, listening to what voice may be underneath all of that can easily be confused with this notion that I am intentionally or subconsciously suppressing a voice, which can manifest itself or create itself as this idea that I am to blame for what's happening in my body. And this is part of the toxicity aspects that people talk about all the time with the new age and new thought movements and kind of spiritual practices when it's not thoroughly understood. And I don't even know if thoroughly understood is the necessary need. I don't know if that's the prerequisite. It's it's not that we have to thoroughly understand something, but that when there is a spiritual practice, if that spiritual practice is not incorporating you in all of your existence, then you're going to be missing something. And if your mind is still functioning and programmed with this idea of an other, something else to blame, something outside of yourself, something outside of this experience, then you're going to play hell trying to utilize a lot of these practices. It's going to fall short and it's going to get messy. We're going to start tying ourselves into knots. And so I've had this practice explained to me. I've had people tell me, what to do. Of course, anybody who is listening to this that's experienced any level of sickness, discomfort, chronic pain will tell you that there are no shortage of people in the world ready on a moment's notice to tell you exactly what you need to do to make yourself better. uh, and God bless them. Like it's well intentioned people. I'm sure it's something that I even do myself. Well, have you tried this? You could do this. Have you tried listening to Journey Home Meditation's morning sit? That could really help you. I don't think I've ever said that to anybody, but I've definitely believed it. uh, the point there is when we find ourselves coming up to resistance in our body and our minds and in an experience where we feel disconnected and othered, we are already going to be starting off on the wrong foot, as it were. And that's going to make this practice of listening to the voice that's being expressed um, a punitive practice. Seeking evidence, trying to find the ways in which I am to blame for my predicament. And so I'm not going to get anywhere with that. I'm not going to get anywhere because inevitably if I go down the path of blaming myself, then I'm going to seek someone else to blame too. Well, I blame myself because of what this person said. It's my fault because of what my mom did or my dad did or what, whatever childhood experience. So that's why it's my fault because of that childhood experience. And then it goes even further where people are like, well, you made the decision to incarnate into this body. And therefore, all of this is your making, it's your doing. And okay, when we extract as a culture or as a people practices that are inextricable from an entire set of ways of being, we're going to mess it up. Period. You're going to mess something up. Uh, you can't just take the little bit of the thing that you want and then misinterpret it and warp it with all of this other stuff to make it fit. And that may even sound like to some people that I'm saying you have to be a purist or a zealot, or like you have to partake in every part of the practice to be able to get anything from any single part of it. That's not what I'm saying either. What I'm saying is when when we start listening to these voices that are saying um, that are using things like blame and punishment, this concept of punishment, um, we are already taking the steps towards separation, right? Um, but when we can go in and we can understand that the practice has to begin with a wholeness, and the practice has to begin with love and acceptance. And that's where the lot of the work is going to be to get to that place before you can even start isolating specific incidents or things. Um, until we get to that place, it's going to be difficult to sort of skip ahead and jump ahead. A good example of that is when we talk about forgiveness and the power and the beauty of forgiveness. It would be unreasonable and probably dangerous to take someone who has been terrorized or victimized in a relationship and say, well, you need to learn how to forgive. So let's forgive your attacker right now. Let's forgive the person who molested you or raped you. Let's forgive the person who killed your family right now. That's how you're going to start learning how to forgive. Pick the most difficult thing in your life, and we'll just jump right in, and then you'll be great. As soon as you forgive, there'll be no more problems in your life because that's your only problem. That's a ridiculous sentiment. It's ridiculous. And it because of the ridiculousness of it, it oftentimes pushes people away from coming into a healthy and whole relationship with themselves through practices that do work really well. And I guess the point of all of this rambling this morning is to take a moment just to recognize that if you are a person who is dealing with chronic pain or chronic depression or chronic anxiety, and you are finding that these things continue even when you're doing all of the yoga, all of the whole foods, all of the meditation, all of the prayer, all these practices, and you start to think maybe you're doomed or you're the failure or that these things must just be part of your karma and this is your lot in life. I want you to take just a moment to recognize that the first step in any of this practice is going to be just being able to be with yourself in a moment without judgment. And I'm not suggesting that once you do that, it's going to take away your chronic depression or your chronic anxiety or your chronic pain. What I'm suggesting is once you start to learn to love and accept yourself, that's going to include the depression, the anxiety, and the pain. And well, to some, that may seem like a small door prize, right? Like a consolation prize. I just want to say that my abilities, when I am capable of loving myself with the pain that I experience in my body, loving myself with the anxiety and the isolating feelings and thoughts and the depression, when I can love myself while I'm experiencing those things, it's not suffering anymore. It's there and it hurts and it sucks. It's difficult, but it's not taking me away from wanting to be here in this time and in this body and in this mind and with this personality. And that's a big step. That's a big step for me. And that may be just enough of a step that you might need to be able to start working towards cultivating a way of being that includes yourself just as you are. And then it's not this heroic dose of medication that's going to come and in 6 short weeks knock out all of your problems and you'll never feel those again. And this brings me to the crux of where this topic is coming from for me today is this Western medication regimen that I'm on right now. I I am struggling with feelings uh, in my body that are um, dissociative. It's dissociating me from my experience of my body instead of familiarizing myself with it. And that's a difficult thing for me. I'm having a difficult time with that process. And maybe you are too. Maybe you're a person who takes medication every day for some ailment, something that you're trying to make gentler and easier in your life. And maybe you even experience a bit of shame around that. Maybe you experience a bit of the shame that is sort of embedded in this notion that I'm going to have to take this pill for the rest of my life to be normal, big air quotes there, to do what other people can do. And there may be feelings of injustice or this isn't fair. So just in sharing this today, I'm hoping that if you are a person who has that experience as well, that you recognize your story in someone else. And it's a part of this experience right now. And it doesn't take any of our ability away to reap the benefits of connecting. And even as much as it makes it difficult for me to fully love and accept myself because I'm having a hard time with that information and with that aspect of my life right now, it gives me an opportunity to go deeper into what unconditional love can be. So I take it on and I'm getting to know it. It's awkward at first. It's uncomfortable. And it's like a new pair of shoes, you know. They're tight and they're not broken in, and you start to get little pains here and there and it's difficult to move through your day. But eventually you're going to break into this. And I think inevitably what it comes down to is this is a practice of opening. If that's the best way I think I can describe this practice is it's a practice of opening myself, stretching myself just a bit further to open a little bit more. And it's not a practice of tearing it off and tearing the lid off of yourself and yard sailing all of your emotions out for everyone to see, dumping everything out on the table. I don't think that that's helpful. I don't think that that's advised, and I don't think that that's necessary in any way whatsoever. Sometimes we get this notion that, oh, well, being open is the goal. So why not be the most open we can be all at once? Why not? That's what's going to help me. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be the most open I can be, tear it all off. But I don't think the goal is to tear yourself open. I think the goal isn't even the opening. The goal is the experience that you have when you are open, that you are a part of a flow of existence. And that's not a goal-oriented goal. There's no end point to it. There's nothing to it that says, like, this is definitively it. Now I've gotten it. You don't get a certificate with this one. You can't say that I'm a certified open loving individual. There's no weekend course you can take. There's no online module you can enter into where you have a series of teachers that are going to give you everything you need to know in 40 hours, and then you get a certificate, and now you can go out and get paid to do this work. It's not what this is. There's no end goal. So the goal isn't an end. The goal is an opening to receive, to release. Um, so this idea that tearing yourself all the way open is somehow the achievement. It's not there. It's not there. It's just another thing to do. It's just another thing to do. If that's what you want to do and that's you think is your path, okay. I'm not judging that at all. I don't think it's necessary because it doesn't make you any more or less you. It doesn't make you any more or less valid, and it doesn't make you any more or less of a human being. Not to me. I worked with a lot of people in my life who are, for whatever reason, wanting to have someone to talk with, not for forever, whatever reason, but for varied reasons, want to have someone to talk with, to connect to sort of share their place in their journey and sort of seek a little bit of outside perspective, right? And I was working with someone who was very stressed by and had a lot of suffering around the idea that they are not open enough. They felt not open enough. They were open a little, but not enough, right? It was this constant thing of like, I'm not enough. I'm not open enough. I'm not vulnerable enough. I'm not sensitive enough. I'm not gentle enough. It's this constant reiteration of a belief of not being enough. And if you've seen this show, this broadcast, or you've listened to it in the past, chances are you've probably heard me and seen me pour cups of tea, right? And I was pouring a cup of tea when I was speaking with this individual, just as I'm doing now. And I'm going to hold the teapot up. Okay, so you can see this in the broadcast. Of course, you know what a teapot is. Everybody knows what a teapot is, most likely. I'm a little teapot, short and stout. All right. So there's the spout of the teapot. Notice, and I pointed this out to this person. I'm sitting with them, and I said, let's talk about this not being open enough thing. Notice my teapot. Notice how comparatively small the opening is in my teapot to the rest of the pot. Right? There's a quart and a half of water, of tea in this pot, but the opening is less than the diameter of a dime, right? Small. It's a small opening. I could say this teapot is not open enough, right? But then if I go to pour it, if it were any more open than that, it would all dump out. And my teacup is small. I couldn't handle having all of that tea rushing out all at once. It would spill out on the sides, and then I wouldn't be able to experience and enjoy my cup of tea. I would have wasted half of it. It would have spilled everywhere and I wouldn't become familiar with it. And my cup can only handle so much at a time anyway. And the reason I use these small cups is because each cup of tea then is warm and it's just what I need in that moment. The only way I can process that quart and a half of tea is one little cup at a time. And the best way for me to get that is out of this little opening. This tiny opening is all it needs. It's going to come out. It's going to come out, and it'll come out in the time and in the fashion that it needs to serve its purpose the best. To best be what it can be in my experience. And I don't know in that conversation if that metaphor sunk in for that person, but it did for me because I had never confronted that before, and I was in speaking it aloud, in processing that idea with this person, I was able to understand it for the first time myself. We don't need to tear ourselves wide open, give everything away all at once to the world. Just being open is enough. Just that little bit. So as I'm sitting with this discomfort of my body pain and this medication that I'm taking that's dissociating me from it and causing a bit of a poisoned feeling in my body, part of my mind, my ego, and who I think I should be wants to reject this. This is stupid medication. No, this is Western medicine, man. I don't do pharmaceuticals, bro. Part of me wants to judge me harshly. Part of me wants to act as if this dissociating feeling in my body that I'm feeling is somehow not me. But then I sit with my practice and I say, hey, the practice isn't to love yourself when it's easy. The practice isn't to love yourself when it's convenient. The practice isn't to love yourself when you're comfortable. The practice is to love yourself. Just love yourself. The practice isn't to love others when it's easy or comfortable. It's just to love others. The practice is just to love. And that means forgiving ourselves when we don't. That's part of the deal. That's part of the whole thing. Forgiving ourselves when we are judgmental and harsh and critical and recognizing, hey, that was just part of the deal right then. I don't need to do that again, but to know that I don't need to do it again, I need to know that I'm still loved because of what I did. Not in spite of it, not outside of it, but including it. I'm loved including my gout pain and including the thing I'm doing to take that pain away. I'm loved with my chronic illness and my healing. I'm loved with my fear and my confidence. So that's the practice that I'm sitting with today. So thanks for joining this morning. I hope that if you are experiencing dissociative feelings with yourself and judgment and criticism, maybe you heard a little bit of your story this morning and you recognize that you're not alone. That's a good step. So let's just take a few breaths together this morning. I'm not going to do any music with it. I think I just want to sit. My body hurts today, but I'm going to do the best I can to move into a position of the least amount of stress or strain. So it may look different today than it did yesterday and different than it will tomorrow. But right now, this is what I have. And just begin to breathe through the nose into the bottom of the belly. and release slowly through the mouth. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose. Let's take this practice, this time right now, to breathe gently. We're not gulping out of scarcity. We're not trying to tear something out of our body or force a bunch of air into the body. We're just breathing gently in through the nose and gently releasing out of the mouth. There's no need to be aggressive with your body or your practice. There's no need to force yourself into discomfort. Discomfort will come. I promise you it will. There's no need to create it. It will be here. And when it comes, you'll be ready to sit with discomfort with equal vision, just being gentle with the self. Let this bring you into your meditation this morning. Gently closing the eyes. Stay with this practice as long as you'd like today. When you're ready to transition out of the practice, just begin with slow movements, gentle movements. The hands and the feet, toes and fingers, ankles, wrists, knees and hips. Just slowly move the body and bring awareness into the sensation that your body is moving. And love on it. Love that body, even the pain. Just love on it for a minute. And if you're not feeling worlds better and super amazing, that's okay. It's okay to not feel great. You don't have to wait for happiness. You don't have to be perfectly healthy before you're happy. You don't have to be a shining example of a spiritual, enlightened being before you are content and in love with yourself. You don't have to wait for any of those things. You can love yourself with your mental suffering. You can love yourself with your emotional agitation. You can love yourself with your physical pain. You can love yourself right now. if you want to. There's a little work that has to be done sometimes, but that's what we're here to do together. More hands makes light work. So thanks for being here this morning. I feel better already. I'm a little bit better at feeling, so I feel better. Uh, Maybe I'll see you tomorrow. We'll see how it all goes. Thanks for being here today. Howdy,